The crown gleamed under the full moon's silver light, positioned perfectly between Alpha Kael's trembling hands and Selena's upturned face. The great hall of the Shadowfang-packed territory pulsed with anticipation. Hundreds of wolves gathered, their eyes fixed on this sacred moment that would bind their future. But in the shadows at the back of the ceremony, a small boy with haunted eyes gripped the leg of an Omega woman who shouldn't have mattered at all. By the ancient covenant of our ancestors, Kael's voice echoed through the stone chamber, I present to you. A low, primal growl shattered the silence. Every head turned. Every breath caught. The Alpha's son, the boy who hadn't spoken a single word in 3 years, the child the pack whispered was broken, shifted for the first time. Silver light exploded around his small frame as fur rippled across his skin. Before anyone could move, before the guards could react, the wolf pup launched himself through the crowd like a streak of divine fury. He hit the stage with impossible force. Selena stumbled backward, her ceremonial gown catching beneath her feet. The crown flew from Kael's hands, spinning through the air in slow motion. The pup's jaws clamped around it mid-flight. He landed, turned, and padded deliberately toward the back of the hall. Toward the Omega. Toward Mira. The crown clinked as it dropped at her feet. The boy shifted back to human form, naked and trembling, and lifted the ancient symbol of Luna authority with both hands. His eyes, glowing with an otherworldly silver light that hadn't been there moments before, met hers with absolute certainty. He placed it gently on her head. Mother, he whispered. It was the first word Riven had spoken since his real mother died. And in that single moment, everything changed. Before we dive deeper into how we got here, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy werewolf stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who'd love it too. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. To understand how an Omega ended up wearing a crown meant for an Alpha's chosen mate, we need to go back 3 years. Alpha Kael had everything once. A thriving pack. A fated mate named Selena who balanced his strength with her wisdom. A son who laughed and played and filled their den with joy. The Shadowfang pack prospered under their united leadership, respected by neighboring territories, feared by those who thought to challenge them. Then the fever came. It swept through the pack like wildfire, targeting the strongest wolves first. Selena fought it for 2 weeks, her body burning while Kael held her hand and their 3-year-old son cried in the corner. When she finally slipped away, something in Kael died with her. And something in Riven broke completely. The boy stopped speaking that night. Stopped laughing. Stopped being a child. Healers examined him. Elders performed rituals. Shamans consulted the spirits. Everyone agreed, young Riven had retreated somewhere deep inside himself, so traumatized by his mother's death that his wolf refused to emerge, his voice refused to work, his eyes refused to show anything but emptiness. Give him time, they said. He'll heal. But months became years, and Riven remained silent. Hollow. Present in body but absent in spirit. Meanwhile, the council grew impatient. A pack needed a Luna, they insisted. Not just for ceremonial purposes, but for balance. An Alpha without a Luna was like a sword without a sheath, powerful but dangerous, unstable, incomplete. Other packs whispered that Shadowfang was weakening. Wolves from within began questioning Kael's ability to lead while drowning in grief. You must choose again, Elder Marcus had said 6 months ago, his weathered face grave with concern. The pack falters without a Luna's presence. Your son grows worse without a mother figure. This cannot continue, Alpha. Kael had wanted to refuse. Every cell in his body screamed that Selena was irreplaceable, that taking another mate would dishonor her memory, that his heart had been buried with her. But he couldn't deny the truth he saw in his pack's worried faces, in the statistics of decreased births and increased conflicts, in his son's continued silence. So he agreed. But he couldn't choose another fated mate, that bond was once in a lifetime. Instead, he would select a chosen mate. A political alliance. A practical arrangement for the pack's survival. Enter Selena. She came from the Blood Moon Pack, a powerful northern territory known for producing dominant bloodline wolves. She was beautiful, certainly, tall and striking with dark hair that cascaded down her back and eyes that sparkled with intelligence. She was educated, well-spoken, trained in pack politics and strategy. On paper, she was perfect. In person, she was cold. Oh, she smiled at the right moments, said the appropriate things, played the role of gracious future Luna during pack gatherings. But Kael noticed how her warmth never reached her eyes. How she calculated every word before speaking. How she looked at pack members not as individuals but as assets or obstacles. Still, he told himself it didn't matter. This wasn't about love. This was about duty. About giving his pack the stability they needed. About providing Riven with a mother figure who could perhaps reach him where others had failed. That last hope died quickly. Selena had no patience for the silent, withdrawn boy. She tried at first, Kael had to give her credit for that. But when Riven flinched from her touch, when he refused to acknowledge her presence, when he ran away from every interaction she attempted, her frustration grew into something uglier. The child is damaged, she'd told Kael privately one evening, her voice clinical and detached. Keeping him in the main house sends the wrong message. He should be placed with a caretaker in the nursery wing until he improves. He's my son, Kael had responded, his wolf rising dangerously close to the surface. He stays with me. Selena had smiled that calculated smile. Of course, Alpha. I only want what's best for the pack. But Kael saw the flash of annoyance in her eyes. Saw how she looked at Riven not with compassion or patience, but with contempt. Like he was an obstacle to be managed rather than a traumatized child who needed help. The council, however, didn't care about Kael's reservations. They'd made their position clear, the Luna coronation would proceed. Unity demanded it. Tradition required it. The pack's future depended on it. And so, despite every instinct screaming at him to wait, to reconsider, to find another way, Kael had agreed to crown Selena as his Luna at the next full moon. Which brought us to tonight. To the ceremony. To the moment when fate decided to intervene in the most spectacular way possible. The day of the coronation had started badly and gotten progressively worse. Mira had sensed it from the moment she woke in her small room in the Omega quarters. Something felt wrong, a tingling in her bones, a whisper at the edge of her consciousness that she couldn't quite hear. She'd learned long ago to trust these feelings, even if she didn't understand them. As an Omega, she ranked at the bottom of the pack hierarchy. No family lineage to speak of, she'd been found abandoned as an infant at the territory's border, adopted by the pack out of obligation rather than desire. She'd grown up knowing she was different, though she couldn't explain how. While other Omegas seemed content with their roles, accepting their low status without question, Mira always felt like she was waiting. For what, she didn't know. She'd found her purpose in the nursery, caring for the pack's young. She had a natural way with children, a gentle patience that even the most difficult pups responded to. And 3 years ago, when a devastated Alpha had brought his silent, traumatized son to the nursery because he didn't know what else to do, Mira had found something more. She'd found Riven. The connection had been immediate and inexplicable. The boy who flinched from everyone else's touch had fallen asleep in her arms that first day. The child who refused to eat had accepted food from her hands. The young wolf who seemed lost in darkness had found a small sliver of light in her presence. Mira didn't understand it. She didn't question it. She simply loved him. Which was why, on the morning of his father's coronation to another woman, she held the sobbing boy in her arms and wished desperately that things could be different. "Shoo, little one," she murmured, stroking his dark hair as he trembled against her. "It's going to be okay." But Riven shook his head frantically, his small hands clutching her dress with desperate strength. His eyes, those unusual gray eyes that sometimes seemed to glow in certain light, were wide with panic. He couldn't speak, but she understood his distress perfectly. He didn't want Selena. He didn't want change. He wanted safety, and somehow, he'd found it with her. I know, Mira whispered, her heart breaking. I know, sweet boy. But your father has to do what's best for the pack. You'll still see me, I promise. I'm not going anywhere. It was a promise she hoped she could keep, though she had her doubts. Just yesterday, she'd overheard Selena speaking with the head nursery attendant. Mira had been in the storage room, sorting blankets, when their voices carried through the thin walls. Once I'm Luna, we'll be reorganizing the nursery staff, Selena had said, her tone businesslike and firm. The Alpha's son requires proper discipline and structure, not coddling from soft-hearted Omegas who enable his weakness. Mira has been very effective with young Riven, the attendant had protested weakly. He responds to her when he responds to no one else. Exactly the problem. He's become dependent on her, which prevents him from developing proper resilience. Children need firm boundaries, not emotional attachment to lowborn wolves who'll never amount to anything. I want her reassigned to laundry duty by week's end. The attendant had murmured something Mira couldn't hear, but Selena's response came through crystal clear. I don't care if he throws tantrums. Let him learn that the world doesn't revolve around his comfort. The sooner he understands hierarchies and duty, the better alpha he'll become. Mira had stood frozen in that storage room, blankets clutched to her chest, fighting back tears. Not for herself, she could handle laundry duty or any other reassignment. But for Riven. For the fragile trust he'd built, the tiny steps forward he'd made, the glimpses of the bright child he'd been before tragedy stole his voice. Now, holding him in her arms as he shook with silent sobs, she felt that strange tingling sensation grow stronger. Something was coming. Something was wrong. Or maybe, something was finally going to be right. The ceremony began at moonrise, as tradition demanded. The great hall had been transformed into something magnificent, banners bearing the Shadowfang crest hanging from stone walls, torches casting dancing shadows across gathered wolves, the ancient coronation platform decorated with silver and white flowers that symbolized Luna's blessing. The air hummed with power and anticipation. Mira stood at the very back, as befitted her station, with Riven pressed against her side. She'd tried to leave him with another caretaker, knowing her presence would be noted and possibly resented, but he'd become so distressed that even Kael had personally asked her to stay. Please, the Alpha had said, and there was such exhaustion in his eyes, such bone-deep weariness, that Mira couldn't refuse. Just keep him calm. That's all I ask. So here she stood, wearing her plain Omega dress while everyone else donned their finest, trying to make herself invisible while the pack's most important ceremony unfolded before them. The elders entered first, their ceremonial robes sweeping the ground, their faces grave with the weight of tradition. Elder Marcus carried the ancient crown, forged centuries ago by the pack's founding Luna, passed down through generations, imbued with the essence of every Luna who'd worn it. Next came Kael. Even grieving, even reluctant, he was magnificent. His formal alpha attire emphasized his powerful frame, and authority rolled off him in waves that made lesser wolves bow their heads instinctively. But Mira could see the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes, the way his jaw clenched as he took his position on the platform. He didn't want this. She could feel it, somehow, in a way she couldn't explain. Then Selena made her entrance. The future Luna moved through the crowd like a queen already crowned, her ceremonial gown shimmering in the torchlight, her head held high with absolute confidence. She was beautiful, there was no denying it. And powerful. And exactly what the pack expected in a Luna. So why did Mira's stomach twist with dread as Selena ascended the platform? Why did Riven suddenly grip her hand so tightly it hurt? The pack recognizes this union, Elder Marcus announced, his voice carrying through the hall. By ancient right and sacred duty, Alpha Kael claims Selena of Blood Moon as his chosen Luna, to lead beside him, to strengthen our bonds, to secure our future. The crowd murmured approval. This was what they wanted. What they needed. Kael lifted the crown from the elder's hands. For just a moment, his eyes swept the crowd, and Mira could have sworn they found her in the back, found his son pressed against her side. Something flickered across his face, regret? Doubt? Longing? Then it was gone, replaced by alpha composure. He turned to Selena, who knelt before him with perfect grace, her smile radiant and triumphant. "Selena of Blood Moon," Kael's voice rang out strong despite the tremor Mira alone seemed to hear. "Do you swear to stand as Luna of Shadow Fang, to protect this pack with your life, to honor its traditions, to guide its future with wisdom and strength?" "I do," Selena replied, her voice clear and confident. "Then by the power granted to me as Alpha, by the authority of our ancestors, by the blessing of the moon above." Kael lowered the crown toward her head. And Riven began to glow. It started as a shimmer, barely noticeable at first, like heat rising off summer pavement. But within seconds, silver light was pouring from the boy's skin, from his eyes, from his very essence. The wolves nearest to them gasped and stumbled back. Mira felt power surge through the small hand gripping hers. Not the power of an ordinary wolf pup. Something else. Something ancient and vast and utterly terrifying in its intensity. "Riven," she whispered, but he wasn't looking at her. His eyes, blazing now with that impossible silver glow, were locked on the crown descending toward Selena's head. His small body began to tremble, and Mira realized with shock that it wasn't fear. It was rage. Before she could react, before she could even process what was happening, Riven's body exploded with light so bright that wolves cried out and shielded their eyes. In the blazing aftermath, where a small boy had stood, there was now a wolf pup. But not any pup. His fur gleamed silver white, the same shade as the moon above. His eyes burned with ancient power. And from his throat came a sound that no 3-year-old wolf should have been able to produce, a howl that shook the very foundations of the hall, that carried the weight of centuries, that spoke of bloodlines and destiny and fate. Then he moved. Goddess above, he was fast. Faster than should have been possible for a first shift. He became a streak of silver light, launching himself through the crowd that parted in shock. Wolves tumbled aside, benches scattered, ceremonial decorations flew as the pup rocketed toward the platform with single-minded determination. Kael's eyes widened. Guards moved too slowly. Selena turned, her face transforming from triumph to shock. Riven hit the platform like a bolt of lightning. His small form collided with Selena's shoulder, and despite his size, the impact sent her stumbling sideways. Her carefully practiced grace abandoned her as she tripped over her own ceremonial gown, arms flailing, a very un-Luna-like yelp escaping her lips. The crown flew from Kael's hands, spinning through the air in a graceful arc that seemed to last forever. Every eye in the hall followed its path. Time itself seemed to slow, holding its breath. Riven leaped again, his jaws snapping closed around the ancient metal mid-flight. He landed on all fours, the crown secure in his mouth, and without hesitation turned and bounded back down the platform steps. Back through the crowd. Back to the shadows. Back to Mira. The hall remained frozen in stunned silence as the glowing pup padded to her feet and dropped the crown with a soft clink. Then, before her disbelieving eyes, he shifted back to human form, a feat that should have taken years of training to master, completed effortlessly by a child in the midst of his first shift. He stood naked and trembling, his small body still glowing with residual power, and lifted the crown with both hands. His gray eyes met hers, and Mira saw something in them that made her heart stop. Recognition. Certainty. Destiny. He raised the crown carefully, reverently, and placed it on her head. The moment the ancient metal touched her hair, power exploded through the hall. Every torch flared brighter. Every wolf felt the surge of energy that rippled outward from where Mira stood. The moonlight streaming through the windows intensified, bathing her in silver radiance that made her simple omega dress seem to glow from within. And somewhere deep inside her, something that had been sleeping for her entire life suddenly opened its eyes. Riven's voice, the voice that had been silent for 3 agonizing years, rang out clear and pure and absolutely certain. Mother. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. Mother. For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The entire pack stood frozen, trying to process what they'd just witnessed, a silent child speaking, a pup's first shift defying all natural laws, an Omega wearing the Luna crown while power radiates from her like she was born to it. Then chaos erupted. Blasphemy! Selena's voice cracked through the silence like a whip. She'd regained her feet, her face twisted with fury, all pretense of gracious Luna vanished. That Omega has bewitched the child. She's manipulated him, poisoned his mind against his father's chosen mate. Elder Marcus stepped forward, his ancient face grave with concern. Alpha Kael, this is highly irregular. The child has clearly been influenced. Influenced? Another elder, Joanna, interrupted sharply. Her eyes were fixed on Mira with an intensity that made the young Omega want to disappear. Look at her, Marcus. Really look. All eyes turned to Mira, and she wanted to sink into the floor. The crown sat heavy on her head, too heavy, surely, for someone like her to bear. But beneath its weight, something else was happening. That sleeping thing inside her was waking fully now, unfurling like wings she never knew she possessed. The moonlight loved her. It caressed her skin, made her auburn hair shine like copper flame, illuminated her wide amber eyes until they seemed to glow with their own internal light. And around her, visible to every wolf present, an aura pulsed, silver and gold intertwined, ancient and powerful and undeniably real. That's impossible, Marcus whispered, his weathered hands trembling. The royal Luna bloodline died out 3 centuries ago. Every record confirms it. Clearly the records were incomplete, Joanna said softly, never taking her eyes off Mira. Because I'm looking at royal Luna blood right now, as alive and pure as it was when our ancestors first walked these lands. Mira shook her head frantically, her hands moving to remove the crown. No, you don't understand. I didn't do anything. I would never, Riven, I didn't tell him to. I know you didn't. Kael's voice cut through the commotion like a blade through silk. Every head turned to the Alpha, who had descended from the platform and now stood halfway between Selena and Mira, his expression unreadable. He looked at his son, who had wrapped himself around Mira's legs, his small body still trembling with residual energy. Then he looked at Mira herself, at the crown on her head, at the power radiating from her frightened form. My son hasn't responded to anyone in 3 years, Kael continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. He hasn't shifted. Hasn't spoken. Healers and shamans all said his wolf was too traumatized to emerge, that his voice might never return. He took a step closer, and Mira saw something flickering in his eyes, wonder, confusion, and something that looked almost like hope. Yet tonight, in the presence of a simple Omega, he shifts for the first time and speaks his first word in 3 years. Because she manipulated him. Selena snarled, her composure completely shattered. She's been caring for him, isolating him, turning him against. Against what? Kael's tone went dangerously quiet. Against a woman he's known for 6 months? Against a future Luna he instinctively distrusts? He turned to face Selena fully now, and his alpha power rolled through the room in waves. Tell me, Selena of Blood Moon, what were your plans for my son after the coronation? Selena's face went carefully blank. I don't know what you. Laundry duty, Mira whispered, and immediately regretted speaking. But she couldn't stop now, not with everyone staring at her, not with Riven clinging to her and Kael looking at her like she held answers he desperately needed. Yesterday, you told the head nursery attendant you wanted me reassigned to laundry duty. You said Riven needed discipline, not coddling. That I was making him weak. The look on Selena's face confirmed the truth before she could formulate a denial. Kael's eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising dangerously close to the surface. You plan to remove the one person my son trusts. The one person who's made any progress with him at all. He's the future Alpha. Selena shot back, desperation creeping into her voice. He can't be dependent on some lowborn Omega who. Who what? Elder Joanna interjected sharply. Who carries royal Luna blood? Who just triggered a traumatized pup's first shift through sheer presence alone? Who wears that crown like she was born to it? She moved closer to Mira, her expression shifting from suspicion to awe. Child, who were your parents? I don't know, Mira admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I was found at the border as an infant. No one claimed me. The pack took me in, but I never knew where I came from. Found at the border, Marcus repeated slowly, his scholarly mind clearly working through possibilities. 3 decades ago, there were rumors. Whispers that the last remnants of the Royal Luna line had gone into hiding after the Great Purge, that they'd scattered to avoid extinction. He looked at Mira with new eyes. What if they didn't just hide? What if they ensured their bloodline survived by placing their children where they'd be safe, even if it meant they'd never know their heritage? This is ridiculous. Selena's voice had gone shrill now, her careful political mask completely abandoned. You're going to overturn a legitimate coronation, reject a proper alliance with Blood Moon Pack, all because some Omega got lucky and a confused child. Riven's growl cut her off. It wasn't the growl of a 3-year-old. It was the growl of something ancient speaking through a young vessel. His eyes blazed silver again, and when he spoke, his voice carried a resonance that made every wolf in the hall instinctively submit. Not confused. He turned those burning eyes to his father. She heard inside. Like me. But she made it quiet. Made it warm. His small hand gripped Mira's dress tighter. Mama went away. But Moon sent her. Moon sent Mother. Tears streamed down Mira's face. Riven, I'm not. You are, he insisted with the absolute certainty only a child could possess. Then he looked around at all the assembled wolves, at the elders and guards and pack members, and spoke with a clarity that shouldn't have been possible. My wolf knows. Mother knows. Moon knows. He pointed at the crown on Mira's head. This is hers. Always hers. I just put it where it belongs. The silence that followed was different from before. Not shocked or confused, but contemplative. Wolves exchanged glances, whispered to each other, looked at Mira with new consideration. If you're still watching, drop a like if you think Riven made the right choice. And comment below, do you believe in destiny, or do you think fate can be fought? Let us know what you think is going to happen next. Elder Marcus approached Mira slowly, his movements careful and respectful in a way they'd never been before. Child, may I examine your aura more closely? I need to be certain of what I'm seeing. Mira nodded mutely, too overwhelmed to speak. The elder raised his hands, and ancient magic, the kind only elders possessed, flowed from his palms in gentle silver threads. They wrapped around Mira like exploratory vines, probing, testing, reading the very essence of her being. His eyes widened. By the goddess, he breathed. It's not just present. It's pure. Undiluted Royal Luna blood, stronger than anything I've seen in historical records. He turned to face the assembled pack, his voice ringing with authority. This Omega is no Omega at all. She's the last heir of the Silvercrest line, the original Royal Luna dynasty that ruled before the Great Purge. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The Silvercrest line was legend, taught to pups as ancient history. They'd been the most powerful Lunas ever to exist, capable of amplifying their alpha's strength tenfold, of healing the sick with a touch, of reading the moon's will and guiding entire territories through wisdom and supernatural power. They'd also been hunted to extinction by jealous packs who feared their influence. Or so everyone thought. If this is true, another elder said slowly, then the child's instinct wasn't wrong. It was absolutely correct. A pup's wolf recognizes Luna authority before they're even conscious of it. He responded to her true nature, not her false station. This changes everything, Joanna added, looking between Mira and Kael with calculating eyes. A Royal Luna bloodline, alive and present in our pack? The political implications alone are irrelevant, Kael interrupted firmly. His gaze hadn't left Mira since Marcus confirmed her heritage, and something in his expression made her heart race. Politics can wait. Right now, I need to understand what just happened. He approached her carefully, the way one might approach a spooked deer. Riven watched him but didn't growl, a good sign. When Kael spoke again, his voice was gentle, almost vulnerable. You had no idea, did you? About your bloodline? Mira shook her head, fighting back more tears. I'm nobody. I've always been nobody. I work in the nursery because I'm good with children, not because I'm special. I don't know how to be, whatever they're saying I am. You've been caring for my son for 3 years, Kael said softly. Making him feel safe when everyone else, including me, failed to reach him. That's not nobody, Mira. That's everything. The use of her name, spoken with such warmth by the Alpha himself, made something flutter in Mira's chest. She pushed the feeling down immediately. This was impossible. She had been, an Omega. He was grieving his fated mate and had just been about to crown another woman. As if reading her thoughts, Kael turned to face Selena, who stood rigid with fury on the platform. I apologize for the public humiliation, but I cannot complete this coronation. Not after what we've witnessed tonight. You're making a mistake, Selena hissed, her composure cracking further. Blood Moon will see this as an insult. Our alliance will be renegotiated as a trade agreement, not a marriage bond, Kael said firmly. You're strong and intelligent, Selena, and you would have made a capable Luna in different circumstances. But my son has made his choice clear, and the moon itself seems to agree with him. He gestured to where moonlight still bathed Mira in silver radiance. I won't force a bond that fights against nature itself. Selena's face went through several expressions: fury, humiliation, calculation, and finally cold acceptance. You'll regret this, Alpha. When word spreads that you rejected a proper alliance for some orphan Omega with convenient royal blood that no one can verify. The moon verifies it, Riven said simply, his small voice cutting through her venom. Why are you so angry? If you were meant to be Luna, the crown would have stayed with you. But it didn't want you. His head tilted with childlike curiosity. Why do you want something that doesn't want you? The innocent question hit harder than any accusation could have. Selena's face flushed, and without another word, she turned and strode from the hall, her ruined coronation gown trailing behind her like the remnants of broken ambition. Guards moved to escort her from the territory. Several Blood Moon wolves who'd come for the ceremony followed, their expressions ranging from confusion to anger. In the chaos of their departure, Kael moved closer to Mira. Close enough that she could smell pine and earth and something uniquely him. Close enough that Riven, still pressed against her legs, reached out and grabbed his father's hand too, creating a connection between the three of them. I don't know what happens next, Kael admitted quietly, his words meant only for her. But my son spoke for the first time in 3 years because of you. He shifted because of you. He recognized something in you that the rest of us were too blind to see. His eyes searched hers. Will you stay? Will you help me understand what this means? Before Mira could answer, Riven tugged on both their hands. Tired, he mumbled, his burst of supernatural energy clearly depleted. Want to go home. Want mother to come. The casual way he said it, like it was already decided, already fact, made Mira's breath catch. I don't know if, she started. Please, Kael said, and the raw need in that single word undid her. Just for tonight. Let me make sure you're both safe, and tomorrow we'll figure out the rest. Mira looked down at the crown still resting on her head, heavy with responsibility she'd never asked for, glowing with power she didn't understand, marking her as something she'd never imagined she could be. Then she looked at Riven, whose gray eyes pleaded with her to stay. And finally, she looked at Kael, whose expression held hope for the first time since his mate died. Okay, she whispered. For tonight. The walk to the Alpha's residence happened in stunned silence. Pack members parted before them, their Alpha, the Omega who might not be an Omega at all, and the pup who'd just rewritten everyone's understanding of fate and destiny. Riven had fallen asleep in his father's arms, one small hand still clutching Mira's sleeve, refusing to let go even in slumber. The crown remained on her head because every time she tried to remove it, it seemed to warm against her skin, as if insisting it belonged there. Inside the private chambers, Kael laid Riven in his bed, the first time the boy had slept peacefully in his own room since his mother died. Usually, he woke screaming from nightmares. Tonight, with Mira sitting beside him, he smiled in his sleep. "I failed him," Kael said quietly, standing in the doorway and watching his son's peaceful face. 3 years, and I couldn't give him what he needed. But you did, without even trying. You haven't failed him, Mira protested softly. You're grieving too. You both lost her. I was so focused on what the pack needed, on duty and tradition, that I ignored what he needed. What I needed. Kael turned to look at her, and in the dim light of the nursery, he looked younger. More vulnerable. I felt it, you know. When you put on the crown. Something shifted. Like a door I didn't know was closed suddenly opened. Mira touched the crown tentatively. I don't know how to be what they're saying I am. I don't know anything about royal bloodlines or Luna powers or... Neither did Elena, at first, Kael interrupted gently. She was terrified when we discovered we were fated mates. Convinced she'd disappoint everyone. But she learned. Grew into her role. He smiled sadly. I'm not asking you to replace her. Nobody could. But maybe the moon sent you for a reason. For him. He glanced at his sleeping son. Maybe for me too. The implication hung between them, too fragile and new to name. A knock on the door broke the moment. Elder Marcus entered, carrying ancient texts and looking exhausted but excited. I've been researching, he announced without preamble. The Silvercrest line had distinctive markers. Amber eyes that glow gold under moonlight, he pointed at Mira, a natural ability to soothe traumatized wolves, accelerated healing in their presence, and most significantly, the capacity to trigger first shifts in young wolves through their aura alone. That's what happened tonight, Kael said slowly, realization dawning. Riven's wolf finally felt safe enough to emerge because her presence made it possible. Exactly. A royal Luna doesn't just lead, she heals. She creates the conditions for the pack to thrive at the most fundamental level. Marcus looked at Mira with something like reverence. You've been doing it instinctively your whole life, child. Making broken things whole again. Tears slipped down Mira's cheeks. I just wanted to help. And that, Marcus said with a warm smile, is precisely why you're worthy of that crown. Power without compassion is tyranny. You have both, even if you don't realize it yet. He bowed, actually bowed, to an omega, and then excused himself, leaving the ancient texts for her to study. In the silence that followed, Kael moved to sit across from Mira, careful not to wake his son sleeping between them. I can't complete the coronation tonight, he said carefully. The pack needs time to adjust, and you need time to understand your heritage. But I want you to know, he hesitated, choosing words carefully, that crown chose you. My son chose you. And I think, maybe, the moon chose you for us long before any of us realized it. Mira's breath caught. Kael. I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I'm just saying, stay. Learn who you are. Let Riven keep having you in his life. And maybe, when you're ready, we'll see what the moon has planned for all of us. Before Mira could respond, Riven stirred in his sleep, mumbling, my mother. Mine and Papa's. Moon said so. Both adults froze, staring at the sleeping child whose words carried the weight of prophecy. Slowly, carefully, Kael reached across his son's sleeping form and took Mira's hand. Not as an alpha claiming his Luna. Not as a male claiming his mate. But as a broken man reaching for the first real hope he'd felt in 3 years. Stay, he whispered again. And Mira, feeling the warmth of the crown on her head, the weight of destiny on her shoulders, and the rightness of the small hand gripping her sleeve, finally nodded. I'll stay. Outside the window, the full moon blazed brighter, as if approving the choice. 3 months later, the pack gathered once again in the Great Hall. This time, there was no reluctance. No political maneuvering. No doubts. Mira had spent those months learning about her heritage, training with the elders, discovering powers she'd never imagined. She'd learned to amplify Kael's alpha commands, to heal minor injuries with a touch, to read the emotional states of pack members and guide them toward balance. The Omega quarters were a distant memory. She now lived in the Alpha's residence, helping raise Riven, who spoke more every day and had become the brightest, most joyful child anyone had seen. And between her and Kael, something had grown. Slowly, carefully, with the patience of two people who'd both known loss. Not a fated mate bond, that lightning strike of destiny neither would experience again. But something deeper, perhaps. A choice. A partnership. A love built on respect and trust and shared purpose. When Kael placed the crown on her head this time, it felt like coming home. By the ancient covenant of our ancestors, he said, his voice strong and sure, I present to you Mira Silvercrest, royal Luna bloodline restored, healer of broken wolves, mother to my son, and mate chosen by the moon herself.